Hey there, winos. In today's episode, we're talking about my generation. And if you're part of Gen Z, we're talking about your generation too.
We're so excited to have Natalie Shaheen with us as our special guest. Natalie is currently the head of human capital at the I-80 Group, which is a private credit firm that provides tailored asset-based credit solutions to companies and platforms. But one of our favorite things is that Natalie has a twisty career path like Julie and I do. She has also worked in talent strategy and is a film producer.
So we're going to say a quick hello to Natalie right now. Hey, Natalie.
Hello.
And we're going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself in just a minute. And she'll explain all of those words that Trisha just said that most of us HR professionals do not understand.
They're kind of tongue twisty too.
Mm-hmm. But the reason we are having Natalie on the show is because she works with a lot of individuals in Gen Z. And in doing so, she realized that they operate a little bit differently than many of the other generations that are currently in the workplace. So we thought this would be a great topic for our listeners and for an episode because we're sure many of you are finding the same. But first, the wine. So Trish, what you drinking?
Well, I have to do a shout out to our dear friend Deborah, who those of you who've been winos for a while will remember Deb. We are at her house and she absolutely saved me. I picked a wine. I wanted to do something new and different and ooh.
It no worky.
No, it was terrible. Like even I couldn't make fake my way through it. So I am doing La Crema, one of my favorite Pinot Noirs. Most of you have heard me talk about La Crema before, but again, what it means is best of the vine. Setting the standard for all we do is one of the things it says on their label. And it says, from our cool climate vineyards to the textured house style we're known for. Which, of course, because I'm a cool climate girl, I'm a 45th parallel girl, you know me, Pinots, they're my jam.
Oh.
Okay. So, I know, terrible joke. But, Natalie, what are you drinking?
And while you're telling us, tell us more about yourself and all those words that Trisha said.
Please.
Sure. Well, I guess it's a good combo effort. I'm drinking. I actually got a gift from a recruiter recently, so I thought, what better time to drink a work-related HRE wine than on Wine with HR?
Oh, love it.
Can you imagine a more perfect time?
Yeah, exactly. And also, it claims it's summer in a bottle. Which is just wishful thinking.
Right.
So there's that. Although I read the back just before joining. It's sometimes a glass is filled with more than just wine. Our summer in a bottle wine evokes sea air, glorious sunsets, and summertime adventures. So nothing about flavor, but a lot of fun.
Can we manifest that though?
I know.
Because I'd much rather have that than the flavor right now. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Well, I will take a sip and let you know. Okay. It's okay. It will be fun to drink. And maybe that's why they didn't add the flavors on the back.
Yeah. And you can tell us what you think after you've had some more at the end. So
True.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will get better.
Grow on you.
Sometimes they
sure
do.
it will get
Sometimes
better.
they do.
But it, is a wine from a recruiter, which is a major part of my life and the community I build at work. And, the recruiters are the bringers of the Generation Z into my workplace. So it's a good segue. Like Trish mentioned, I've been in film for about 15 years, transitioned to finance about 10 years ago. And I know that sounds like a very abrupt transition. I'm I'm aware. But I sat down and I listed all my skills on a piece of paper, and producing a film and operating a people department actually are almost the same transferable skills.
Oh, for sure.
You've got to pay people, you've got to figure out what skills you need on set, you got to go find the people, you got to make sure they're all happy together. So it actually was a pretty easy transition. And since then, I've been in hedge funds, private equity, family offices. I'm now at a private credit shop, which essentially means, and for what it's worth, we abbreviate it to ABF instead of saying all of the words. You're not the only one whose tongue gets twisted with that. But it essentially just means we lend money to lenders.
Okay.
Money is our asset. So it's an easy way of saying it.
Very
But
cool.
yeah, we've grown 50% the last 2 years in a row. We're going to grow another 50% this year, and it's all about, scaling and growth, and that means lots of generations.
Yeah. Yeah.
It sounds like you're the perfect person to talk to about this.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we will I'm going to talk about my wine.
I was going to say, what about
Oh,
your
don't worry,
wine?
I didn't
Oh,
forget.
Okay.
But then we're going to definitely have to circle back and get a little bit more info on Natalie and how she came to just understand Gen Z more. So we will get to that in a second. So I, shocker of all shockers, am drinking a dry Italian white wine.
What?
I know.
I mean, for you
I
to
know.
go so far
Oh.
out of your
Comfort zone?
yes,
I know, I
just
know.
Amazing.
This one is a Soave, which is just
Ooh.
so fun to say. And it is from Italy, but this cracked me up that it is imported by Barone Trading, which is out of Shaker Heights, Ohio.
No way.
So Shaker Heights is very close to us. It's
Okay.
on the east side of Cleveland. Lots of really cool shops over there, lots of really
So
cool
much
restaurants, all sorts of stuff. So that was a fun little fact. This one also doesn't really have a description of the wine at all, but it is. I really like it. Again, not a surprise because it's right in my lane of all the wines I like. But give me a second. You can definitely smell some grass.
I only wish we were on video so you guys could see her nose so far in the glass.
Well, I was taught that by my husband, who
I-
is a whatever the first level of a sommelier is. So
Oh yeah, that's not an easy feat.
no, and you are supposed to have your mouth open as you're sniffing because it brings in more of the flavors. So definitely some grass, a little bit of citrus, but not overly so.
Nice.
And yes, I have ice in my wine glass because it was warm, and you can't drink white wine warm, so because that's just gross. There's some minerality.
Ooh, your favorite.
Yes, my favorite.
Excellent.
My favorite.
Excellent.
It's very what's the word I'm looking for? It's full-bodied but light at the same time, which again seems to contradict itself, but it would be very good with seafood.
Ooh.
And pretty much any Italian pasta dish that has either like chicken, which in true Italy, there aren't a lot of chicken dishes, but again, the fish, the pasta, the vegetarian kind of dishes, this would pair very, very nicely with.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. So, okay. So now it is on to the WHINE of the episode. So again, Natalie, why don't you tell us a little bit about why this topic is near and dear to your heart?
Sure. Well, like any problem you solve for, it's usually a problem you're facing. And myself, as well as, plenty of people I've worked with, not necessarily, all across the board, generational differences are real. And, like when we look at generations through the lens of formative experiences, think media, podcasts, education, childhood games, world events, we can start to uncover patterns that reveal how the psychology and the behavior shapes the generation. And I was starting to notice those differences, but not sure what to do with them. And really, in understanding them, unlocked the key to how to motivate people in different generations, up and down, and side by side. It's a good lesson for everyone to learn, but it's through that understanding. Um, and so, when you look at Gen X, early millennials, you kind of look at their formative experiences. They're very different than Gen Z's formative experiences. And like thinking at the top of mind, like school and authority for Gen X and millennial, teachers were allowed to raise their voices. Parents supported the teachers' decisions, not the children's. And
Sometimes teachers were allowed to hit students.
yeah, throw a book or two.
You know.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I had
Yeah,
a
and that
professor
that
that threw
normalized
chalk.
discipline. It,
Yep.
it normalized punishment, pressure, discipline. It's completely different than you shift to many years later. And, the school and authority for Gen Z, teachers are quite censored these days.
Mm-hmm.
Parents hover a little more, different styles and techniques. And so there's no more constructive criticism. We're normalizing mom and dad doing it for you. We're normalizing nothing being your fault and blame being a hot potato instead of, a catalyst for change.
Mm-hmm.
I love too that you're differentiating between the early millennials and late, because I
Mhm.
think that is the millennials are such a gigantic, if you'll allow me to use that, like span of years that they really are different from the early to the late. And I didn't know that until I read your material and started doing some investigating of my own. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, it truly is. It's interesting too. A side fun fact is as technology expedites development and scales, generations get smaller and smaller because they're intrinsically tied to how we relate to technology. So
For
millennial
sure.
really is the last of the long generations, if you will, the last of the Mohicans. Um,
Yes, one of my favorite all-time movies. So,
yes.
and books, and yeah.
Yeah, so it's an interesting fact, the duration of a generation. It'll start to become so short soon that it'll be vintages of generations.
I love
Um,
that. Well, and we need a cheers.
a
Vintages.
little
Yeah.
wine
Cheers,
pun
Vintages.
for you.
Natalie. I mean,
Yes.
I'm
I
sorry.
know.
That was amazing.
Little wine reference.
Little,
Yes.
yes,
That
that
was
was
great.
perfect.
Um, but yeah, like kind of going back to comparing the two, when you think of like formative world events and you think of Gen X, early millennial, you've got Rodney King riots, you've got 9/11, and even in those moments, people took to physical protests in groups of people in a community in the streets. And I know that that does happen on some level now, but they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Formative world events for Gen Z are COVID, BLM, a lot of mental health movements, and TikTok. Maybe TikTok is kind of like the underlying force under all of them because these, it's everything's so personalized and internalized. It's this dual experience of isolation and global access, which actually causes like an ultimate loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
I was just listening to NPR today, and that was one of the conversations they were having. Is given
Mm,
that we just had this huge decision in the courts about whether these
Meta
Meta
and
and all of these others could be held liable or liable, maybe not the correct
that's
word,
true.
but I think
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really fascinating as they talked about exactly what you're saying is just like how important it has
mhm.
become and how it you can't really separate it from their lives in any sort of fashion. Like you
You
try
can't.
to pull it out and it's yeah, so
And there's real lasting effects. Gen Z has the highest rate of Prozac use, and that has a real lasting effect on your chemical balance and the way you perceive and operate in the world,
right.
um, which affects who you are at work.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting, and some of this is anecdotal because I have nieces that are in Gen Z, but I think like what you were just saying about the Prozac use, on the one hand, that's great, right? Because they can recognize that they need it. There isn't as much of a stigma around it. So they're more open to seeing a doctor, getting a prescription, getting on medication that may be helping if they have some sort of physiological imbalance. But on the other hand, we have, as you were saying, sort of catered to this sensitivity, and we haven't taught them how to deal with life. We've just given them pills
I agree
in
with
some
you.
respects, you know, like,
I would alter it a teeny bit instead of saying we catered to their sensitivity, because I do think that that is one of the myths about Gen Z that I would love to bust. But I think it's that we've manufactured a lifestyle that causes more anguish.
yeah. Hmm.
No.
Like
Yeah.
I think that's part of the legal trials with social media happening right now is they
Yeah.
have a real
Exactly. The filters.
Mhm.
That was one of the things they were talking about today was like how everything is viewed through filters and how much of an impact it has and how they help people, young people, hide this from their parents. They were talking about like how, if you have anorexic behaviors or damaging behaviors or bulimic behaviors, how to hide that from your parents is one of the things that is out there. And that was devastating to me. Like I had never heard that before. Like I knew that these filters existed and I knew that all these other things existed, but the fact that it taught you how to hide these
Yeah.
things when the whole idea is connection. Like you said earlier, this thing that is supposed to connect us has somehow
Isolated
completely
us.
isolated us.
Yeah, yeah. It's really well put. It's so antithetical to the purpose of, or well, the purpose we thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess my last comparison, and I think it's actually the most fun one, so it's a good one to end on, is the games we play. When you consider, we'll just go video games. When you consider the games that Gen X and early millennials played, Mario Brothers, Duck
Frogger.
Hunter, yeah.
Love Frogger.
Frogger, though, yes. It's true. All of these games, it was like you get through lives and you die. If you fail, you start over. You got to memorize the route. You got to have resilience. You got to have grit. You have to get through it or you die.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's there's no forgiveness in the video games
No.
of the
Right.
80s and
No.
90s, and yeah, none.
Uh-uh.
Not even in Pong.
No. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's true. It's all about like, if you don't jump on the right square, you die. If you don't cross the street,
yeah.
you die.
The
If
big
you
Yep.
X
Yeah.
that would
And the sound.
Totally, that's exactly right. But there's a huge shift in video games now. You have endless lives. You can choose how difficult you want the settings to be. You can choose how pretty you want this. They've got like cinematic or performance options. You can pause and save at any point in the time. You don't have to start over.
uh,
And
what?
yeah, but the interesting part about it is it's normalizing. Emotion isn't punished. Agency is encouraged. So it's a little less about learn this or die, and a little more about how can this lesson impact and have purpose in where you're going. I mean, there's
Interesting.
video games where you just walk around and you pick stuff up and you look at it.
Okay.
So different.
Yeah.
So
So
different.
different. Mm-hmm.
But it's like
Wow.
no wonder Gen X can't communicate the rules
Right.
of an office
Yeah.
to Gen Z when their like foundational understanding of rules is so different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I do think, being from Gen X, I think one of the things that is really difficult for Gen X, and I saw a comedian do a brilliant thing about this, which I won't do justice, but you were talking about formative experiences, and one for Gen X is the Challenger explosion. Like
Oh,
we
this
were
is perfect.
sitting in a classroom and teachers wheeled in TVs and we were like, we're going to see a teacher go to space. And
So
then it
cool.
blew up and they literally just shut the TV off, wheeled it out of the room and never spoke about it again. Like
is-
we are
We
the
went into math class.
yes, we are like the suck it up and move on generation.
That is the
We did
quintessential example.
right? We did
Yes.
not talk about feelings. We have never talked about feelings. We don't want to talk about feelings. And we sure as heck do not want to talk about feelings with somebody younger than us. Like, just suck it up and get the job done. And that is where a lot of the clash is probably happening now, because I also think that, and I don't know that it's Gen Z in particular or if it's just some of the younger generations, but it kind of goes back to that juxtaposition that you were talking about before. But like, I think they're better at understanding their feelings than Gen X ever was, but they don't necessarily know how to communicate those feelings. And so they struggle with that. And then Gen X is like, Jesus Christ, just get back to work. You know, like, and so there's like this fight all the time about it because
I will double click on that.
Yes, yes, yes to all of the above.
Yes.
My sixth, we were in sixth grade when this happened. Our sixth grade teacher, actually, it was one of my dearest friends. Her father was one of the finalists.
oh wow.
For that crash.
Oh
And
my.
for that crash.
For that crash, for that mission.
For that mission. Like, he was one of the finalists and didn't get picked, and it was like so
Ooh.
devastating. And like, that didn't even get addressed.
Yeah.
Like, it
Oh,
was
no.
just, I mean, we talked maybe 30 seconds, and then it was like, okay, let's move on. Let's do, so it was, all right. I have to do some stats
Yes, you
because
do.
I miss stat time, and I think these are incredibly helpful for our discussion today. All right, so you know that I love Gallup and all of the polls that they do. So Gallup at the end of January released their 2025 statistics. And so just a couple of interesting ones that will really kind of point to some tips and some tricks that Natalie is going to share with us, because you know we love our tips and tricks. So now let's just start generally. The percent of U.S. employees who are actively engaged at work, and you know Julie and I love to talk about engagement, was unchanged. Do you remember what it was?
Low. I remember it was low.
Look at this number.
31%.
31%. And that is, again, all U.S. employees, okay?
So all generations as well.
All
We're not picking on
generations.
anybody here.
Not
Yep.
just your
Generation.
generation. Because we have to sing at least a couple of times.
Yep.
Okay, so 54% of our Gen Z and young millennials, again, we're talking about like that 1989 or later millennial, 54% are not engaged. 15% are actively disengaged, and 31 to 35% are fully engaged. Now, when it comes to our older millennials, so we're looking at like the 1980 to 88 range here, 51% are not engaged and 17% are actively disengaged. Now, for those of you who are like, see, they're the worst generation ever, not so fast. Our Gen Xers, 1965 to 79 approximately, 49% are not engaged and 19% are actively disengaged. So I really wanted to share that with you, but most importantly, I think the thing for me was the fact that it came down to the why. You guys know Julie and I talk about the why all the time, and this decline in employee engagement really does come down to communication and respect. And so, Natalie, the tips that you shared with Julie and I just thought were absolutely brilliant along those lines of communication and respect. So, would you like to share a couple of those with us?
Or at least
Sure.
one to start.
Yeah, start with one because
You want me
Julie and
to
I can't shut up. We're gonna have to talk to you about them.
do you want me to give you the list of the three, or do you want me to just dive into one?
Dive into one, don't you think, Jules?
Sure.
Yeah.
I like it. How
Let's
about
keep the suspense going.
Yeah.
yeah, one
And
at a
wait,
time, ladies
speaking
and
of
gentlemen.
suspense, here, hold
Oh
on.
yeah.
Ready? Ready?
Wait.
All right.
Yep. Everybody listen. Oh, listen
Ready?
to that beautiful sound.
Excellent. Okay.
That was fun to watch.
Right? Well, it's better than interrupting you later with our pores.
Yeah. Yeah.
I welcome that is the one way I enjoy being interrupted.
She's really our people.
Yes.
So yeah, no, my first tip, it seems so simple, but it does take a moment to pause and think about as the manager in the scenario. And it's signal safety. It's before you have a corrective conversation or discussion, you need to explicitly name what the conversation is and how it should be interpreted. So, like keeping with that school and authority and COVID TikTok context and all of that in mind, most Gen Z employees have never received direct in-person feedback. And keeping COVID and TikTok in mind, they tend to internalize negativity and input as personal failure
Oh my
because they don't know how to
goodness.
fail.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
And so, if you give them clear context before feedback, it regulates their nervous systems because we're all just humans. It'll regulate their nervous system so they can process the information and instead of internalize it. And it creates this new emotional normal. You could just say, you call out what the conversation's going to be. You sometimes even tell them how to feel about it. You can say, this may feel frustrating, but I'm raising it because I care about you.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so, this is a normal stage of growth. It's okay, but we got to address it for you to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then you dive in.
yeah, and that's not that different than advice we've given. So Trisha and I like this method called the feed forward method.
Mm,
Marshall Goldsmith, am I getting that right? I
Believe
think
so,
that's right.
yes.
But it's basically like if you're going to have a discussion with someone about something that went wrong, like let's say there was a project and there were a couple of things that didn't go quite the way they should have. You
mhm,
focus on not like pointing fingers or blaming anybody, but you look at it and you say, okay, what could have gone better? And how do we make sure that happens in the future? So it's like more focused on how do we prevent this? How do we problem solve versus we're going to point the finger and tell you that you screwed this up or you're an idiot or whatever the case may
mhm.
be. Because people tend to respond better to that. So it sounds like it's similar, um,
Similar. And
similar,
that would
but
be how I recommend to give advice to a Gen X or a millennial.
yeah.
But my argument would be most Gen Z people graduated high school, college, or started an internship or job during COVID, which means they experienced this pivotal milestone of their professional career in their sweatpants, on their couch, watching television without shoes on, alone. So when you say, how could this have gone better? They actually don't know.
Oh.
So we have to reestablish their normal.
So what would be your recommendation then?
So like for some of that, like I've experienced, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I've had to tell a lot of people to keep their shoes on. I've had to tell a lot of people to stop watching television at work. I've had a lot of like housekeeping things that you would feel like. And it's actually the same safety signal that I would say before. It's just a little bit more like for non-performance stuff, I would maybe say something like, this might be awkward, call out how we're all going to feel,
Yep.
but I care about your success here. So I'm going to, share a behavior that might be standing in your way of growing.
Oh, I like that.
And
That's
I'm
really
sharing it because I want you to grow, but also it's got to stop.
Yeah.
Natalie, has anyone ever told you why they think it's okay to watch television at work?
Because they
I'm
literally
sure we have a lot
watched
of people.
television through the last years of their high school or college experience. They were doing
Okay.
their homework with television on. They were doing their interviews with television. They were in their bedrooms. or
So
their living
their
rooms.
ability to quote unquote, multitask,
Hmm.
that is in the background. They don't feel that it is actually standing in their way. Is that
Hmm.
what you're saying?
I might argue that they think they're multitasking, but they
They're
probably
not.
aren't.
Yes, of
Um,
course.
I would say it's just their normal to have it on because no one turned it off for them when they were in their college dorm by themselves during COVID.
Got it. Okay.
So
Okay. Thank you
now,
for clarifying.
yeah, now I just have to turn it off for them. And we'll slowly but surely, I don't what is the phrase, how many times do you have to do something before it's a habit?
21 days is the general.
Mm-hmm.
So, you kind of have to tell them a few times. But, as long as you tell them, you can put their nervous system at ease by telling them, like, I also feel this way. And then you can make them feel cared for and valued by letting them know you're telling them because you care. And then you insert it there, but you have to create a new normal, or they're just going to keep doing it because it's their normal.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part, right? Is that it's their normal. Most people that are in our age or older that are listening, our Gen X's, maybe even to the boomers, are like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely a non-starter in the workplace. How do they not know? But
Yeah.
you've already addressed that because it is their normal. It is what they grew up with. It is their experience. And so
Yeah.
we do have to be, I guess, a little more what's the word I'm looking for? Jules, help me.
Well, it's our job to guide them.
Yeah,
Hmm.
To
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the word you were looking for, but
No, but I think it's
We have to be more adaptable.
that's
well,
where I
I'm
was
glad you said
going.
that because we should talk about both generations or all generations in this scenario. Because PSA to the older generations, if you're feeling triggered by, if you're listening to me and you're like, well, that's hand-holding and coddling, perhaps that's your own conditioning being challenged.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And this might be evidence that you were never given the safety you now expect others to operate without.
Yep.
It doesn't mean it's bad. It just
Hmm.
means like, so give on to others what you wish was given to you.
Right. Yeah, we don't need to do this hazing thing where, well,
Yeah.
I had to do it, so you have to
Right.
go through it too, you know?
It's so common though. I
Oh
mean,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
it's
I,
very common. Yeah, it's very common.
We just had this conversation last week when we
Yeah.
were speaking at Nork.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Oh, shout out to all our Nork friends out
Yeah.
there. So good to
Hey.
connect with all of you.
Yeah. But Natalie, as you were talking, I was thinking about, so, you were talking about what seems to be an abrupt career change. Well, I was a social worker before I was a lawyer, so that also seems rather abrupt. But when I was working as a social worker, I was running a program, a summer program for at-risk youth. So they were at
Mhm.
risk of, getting into risky behaviors, basically.
Sure.
And so it was in a really impoverished neighborhood and things like that. And as somebody who grew up in, as my husband always likes to say, Norman Rockwell painting, you know, um, this was eye opening for me, but, not completely out of I was aware, but I just didn't always realize the extent of some of it. But I had some young teenagers who worked for me who, just like you were saying, I had to teach them things that I was shocked they did not know. So like I had to I had to take one of them to the bank to open up a bank account because they did not know how to deposit a check or what
Hmm.
to do with their paycheck, and I had another wonderful young man who didn't show up for work one day and didn't call off. And I was like, what's going on? And I kept asking, like, and they didn't want to tell me at first. And I was like, okay, seriously, what is going on? And they told me that his mother had died. But he was afraid to call and tell me
Oh my gosh.
and ask for the day off because he was afraid I was going to fire him. And I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh,
Like, I don't know how this message got sent, but I've got to fix that because that is not, how we would operate. But the things that I considered basic knowledge
Hmm.
were not because of the environment in which these
The
kids who
formative
were working,
experiences of their
yes,
lives.
were
Yeah.
working for me were not they did not have the same experience that I had as a child.
And that was 20 years ago.
Oh, 20. You're being very kind
I mean,
right now.
I was trying to
very,
not, yeah.
very
I
kind
was
right
trying
now.
not
But
to
thanks.
be.
No, that's fine. Everybody knows how old I am. It's fine. But I think the difference was that was more almost geographical, regional, it was socioeconomic.
Mhm.
But with Gen Z, COVID affected an entire swath at a level that we have not seen before.
Yeah.
And I think that is a big part of it as well. So like while it may have been easy for Gen X and the boomers and us older folk to say like, well, it's isolated incidents. It's not anymore. We do have to adapt because the things are changing whether we want them to or not. And Gen Z, to your point, doesn't always even know they need to change because they just didn't have the same experience that we had.
It's true. It's true. That's a great example of, your normal is your normal. It's formed by your life experience.
Yep.
And you're not going to know anything different until you experience something different.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is your second tip?
My second tip is to rewrite the rules. I would argue Gen Z is not resisting work. They are resisting work that feels disconnected from impact.
Oh, that
Mhm.
is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Gen Z, appears disengaged, it's rarely about effort, it's about alignment. When expectations feel arbitrary, now remember those video game rules,
Yeah.
arbitrary, cross the street or die.
Yeah.
uh, and unforgiving, motivation drops. It's not because they don't care, it's because the system no longer makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like Gen Z was shaped by games and systems that were process and rules were adaptive. This is just a generational mismatch. It's not a flaw with them. It's not a character flaw. Um, so yeah, what looks like disengagement to, froggers is often a signal that the operating rules just need to be clarified, updated, modernized, translated with outcomes, just into something they can believe in. So I would say ask yourself, what rules are my Gen Z not following? And can I rewrite those rules to be less arbitrary and more meaningful? And then I would give you bonus points if you include your Gen Z when you ask this question.
Right? Yeah. Go to
Does
the
anyone-
source.
I feel like we just crossed like the roop 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 level in like
Yeah. We're
I
about
mean,
to
since
meet the
we're-
boss.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to drop another stat here for people just because I think it kind of it was really perfect. Our Gen Z and young millennials were 13% less likely in 2025, so 41%. Than in 2020, so that whole difference between COVID and now, they were 54% to strongly agree to the statement, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. And I think that going with what you just said, that is incredibly important to Gen Zs. What I have noticed is that they want to be cared about as a person. And more importantly than maybe even that, they want to know that the work that they're doing matters.
Yeah.
Like I can, for us, I don't think we ever thought about that. Like, I don't even really think, I mean, obviously it's something that we all care about here on this podcast, but like at the beginning of my career, I never thought about really, truly, how does this matter? What impact am I making? What does this do? How am I making a difference? And that is one of the things I'm obsessed about when it comes to Gen Zs. I love them for this.
I agree. I agree. And it's so simple. You just, ask questions, for whatever rule is seemingly arbitrary, which I'm sure isn't. I'm sure it has some outcome that's, mission critical to your department.
For sure.
But
Yeah. Sometimes it's just because it's the way it was always done.
Ah.
Fair, fair. In
Natalie,
which
that goes
case,
to some of the things you've talked about, right?
yeah, in which case, thankfully Gen Z came along
Right,
and it
Yeah.
exactly.
completely worked out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But like you can ask them things like, the goal isn't to do it my way. The goal is to get the best outcome. How would you do this?
Oh, one of my favorites. That is the feed forward method. That
Ah,
is
love.
exactly what feed forward suggests. And it's brilliant. I think it will work. So for those of you who haven't looked into the feed forward method, listen to Natalie, listen to what she's saying, look at feed forward, marry the two, and hopefully your disengagement rates will plummet.
That's the goal.
That
That's the
is the
goal. I
goal.
don't know if y'all get this much, but I do with my Gen Z where they're just like, it's pointless.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's pointless. And like, I actually love when they say that because it's a gift. They've just told me where
Where the
we are
rub is.
disconnected.
Yeah. Hmm.
Hmm.
And like, that's the perfect time to be like, okay, great. How, how can we adjust this task without lowering the bar? Like, if that's pointless, tell me.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a gift. So listen when they talk too.
I do think that that is one place where Gen X and the boomers and maybe even the early millennials probably struggle
Mhm.
with this because it is hard sometimes to admit that you can learn something from someone who is younger and less experienced than you are. Even at life, you can learn things just because of the way that they look at the world. And
Imagine that.
so, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So like the reframing where you're saying that's a gift, I think that is a gift that we can give to our listeners is to think about it that way. Like, yes, you are the more likely, the more experienced at the actual work,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean you don't have anything to learn. And we can always all do with a little bit of introspection and retrospection, all of the spections to really look at a situation differently and maybe see a different way of doing things. And Gen Z could be the key to that.
Which is one of the reasons why when we talk about like creating mentor mentee programs, we always say do not let people create them for themselves because inevitably it's like people who look like me or act like me or have been raised like me or do whatever like me end up creating their own programs. But if you create the programs, then you can actually create this beneficial scenario that we are all talking about here, like so that everyone ends up learning and growing and sharing. Because I 100% agree with what you both have said. I think that we can learn a lot from younger generations if we're willing to set our egos aside and be like, we may not know as much as we think we know, or maybe they just have a great way of looking at things. I think that I'm very impressed with the way they treat their fellow man.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And I use man in a way I probably shouldn't. We should say
Human.
man or
Yeah.
human.
Mhm.
Bless you. That's amazing. Yes. And so I really admire that about them.
Well, and I love Julie. I love that you keep bringing it. You're grounding us in the Gen X, and I appreciate that. And I agree with all that. I would say for those of us older generations that do think we know it all and feel like this is, you know, leaning into Gen Z entitlement, my question to you would be, do you want to be right or do you want to make it work?
Hmm. Yep. Mic drop.
I am dancing in my seat, y'all. It's probably a good thing this isn't video anymore, because
Yeah.
whew, not a pretty dance, but a happy dance.
Yep. Yep. All right. What is your third tip,
My
Natalie?
third is a fun one because I personally just learned it myself. Um, and I call it behavioral economics. And I do that because bribe 'em sounds a little too
I like bribe them.
bribe 'em. Just bribe them. We know they like impact. We know they like purpose. We know that they internalize things and personalize things. So, when and we know also, by the way, a thing that we have not touched on, but a big deal, they have very low attention spans. It's a fact. I'm not mad at them.
Nope.
The average
100%.
Gen Z attention span is 8 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks, TikTok.
Yeah.
I was just about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when they don't pay attention to a task and it usually means that they're not interested with everything we know about how they're so purpose driven and impact forward, usually means they just don't care about it. And so if you can root their mundane, dislikable tasks in something that motivates them, you can in turn get both things done at once. So it's not bribery in a childish sense. That's like why I've decided to call it behavioral economics,
I love it.
because it's
Such a
not like
great
clean your
term.
room where you get a cookie, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
And I love this because I just learned it. My analyst, my human capital analyst, Shelby. So shout out to Shelbs. She's been, with me for about a year and a half, and she actually has kind of an old soul. She's a little more Gen X than a lot of the Gen Z that I experience, but we can't help our conditioning. And she, supports all of recruiting, which is a lot. We've got a lot going on, 50% on 50% on 50%. I do not want to diminish any part of her role. She's got a lot on her plate. But she was dropping a lot of like the administrative stuff with scheduling and recruiting, and then like, oh, the resume wasn't attached. Oh, the all the people in the meeting weren't invited. Little things like that. Oh, the wrong role was attached to the wrong name, and people got confused. And I just said to her, okay, you give me 2 months of zero scheduling errors, and I will let you lead without budget or approval from me that we've been planning this early careers ERG group, employee resource group. And she's been so excited because it's her group as far as, age range and things. And I said, it's yours. You can do the whole first event all by yourself. I will only help if you ask me to. If you give me 2 months without any scheduling errors. And we're a little over a month in. And we are very close to throwing that ERG activity. And I honestly wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. But she cares so much about this group that it suddenly made scheduling really important to her.
That is really fascinating. And I'm glad you used that example because I was going to ask you, and I'm still going to ask you, but you sort of answered it in the example you just gave. But just for our listeners' sake, for anybody out there who's thinking like, when you're talking about, Gen Z really cares about making an impact, I personally go to like social impact or environmental impact or something. But there are, a lot of jobs out there where there isn't that kind of impact. Like, so how do you sort of bridge that gap? Like, okay, well, the impact is if you are doing task, sorry, task X, it results in outcome Y, and that's important because of this. But outcome Y is really like nothing that most of us would consider
Important
Yeah.
or like life changing
Impactful.
or impactful. Yeah.
So like how do you but the example you gave is find out what's important to them. So this ERG
Cool.
group was important to her, so that was the way to tie the impact. But are there other thoughts that you have on that?
So, we all self-select into the roles that we play, right? So, Shelby's a very easy example for this question in that she is a people-forward person working in human capital. It's important to her to create a community within her community. It's important, and I think it's probably a very obvious example. So let's swing to the other side of my world and let's talk about motivating my investment team. Because you could argue making money is not social impact, is not, and I don't mean their personal salaries. I mean, making money out
Yeah.
of money
Right.
and
Yeah.
investments. You could argue it's not social, it's not activism, it's not environmental. You could argue all these things, and most of the time it's not. I understand there's outliers with like impact strategies and things,
Sure.
but that's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest mistake you can make is assuming what's important to you is important to them.
Hmm.
And if they self-selected into that role, there's something about it that's important. So, like, I know, for example, um, the way that my firm works, we uniquely solve problems. Not a single one of our deals looks the same. So if you're of the mind that this is exciting, I get to work on different kinds of businesses in a variety of ways. I get to learn from closely from my senior leadership on how they make decisions. Well, then maybe you might motivate them with, being able to work on originating some of their own deals,
Nice.
depending on the level they're at. Okay, go find a deal you want to work on and put that through a memo process. Um, or, you get to work on this team in this vertical because you've been saying it's interesting to you, but, we'd said you needed a little bit more experience, but if you can prove that you have the experience by doing XYZ, we'll let you do a deal in vertical ABC. So, like it's interesting because we self-select, and I understand some people have jobs because they just need a job.
Hmm.
And that might be more difficult, but there's something about that job that's important to them.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's like you get an hour off Friday early, or there's something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
So basically, you have to actually talk to your employees and find out
Communicate?
what matters to them.
What? Oh,
yes,
come on. You
yes.
two. Like, this is not something we preach every single week.
No,
We
not
have
at
to
all.
talk to one another and really, oh wait, maybe actually no. Shut the mouth, open the ears.
You have two for a reason.
Yeah. 2 ears, one mouth.
Hmm.
Natalie, I am just so excited to have had this conversation with you today. I have a nephew who actually is in human capital management and just like graduated and did all of these great things. And I feel like there's that piece of him that while he's excited about his job, there's that connection piece that's missing. And so
Hmm.
as you're talking about this, I hear him and I want to be like, I want to connect him with you because
Please do.
I will. Because I feel like you get it, you understand, and I hope that everybody out there listening really takes away the same thing that I am taking away today, which is how important it is to again set our own egos and our own life experiences aside and realize that look, every generation is different, but this generation, especially given what they have been exposed to from the standpoint of being barraged, is that the with social media and the different platforms, and then but also they have this dedication to improving things, and I really want to focus on that. Like if I could
Mhm.
do anything for all of our listeners, it's focus on what they want to achieve, focus on the fact that they actually care that much, and use that to connect with them.
I love that. I actually, I'd love to end at least my part on a note. We actually have, you already said we have so much to learn from them, but I would recommend everyone in the older generations learn the forgiveness and having grace with yourself part of it. Because,
Yeah.
you say,
Oh.
oh, these tips are great, but, last year I wasn't here, and next year I'll listen to this and be like, oh, cringe. If only I had known this and this and this.
Yep.
Here,
And
here.
and we're only where we are.
Yep.
Yeah.
And our normal is our normal, just like their normal is their normal. And so like try to have we come from a very rigid foundation in the older generation. So try to have a little forgiveness with yourself. Learn from the Gen
Grace.
Z's
Yeah.
forgiveness and grace. And like allow yourself to be wrong.
Yep.
Allow yourself to just, as long as you're trying.
Yep. Well, and I would comment on that, learning how to laugh at yourself. So my sisters and I talk about this with our nieces. Like, one of the things we love is that they will tell embarrassing stories about themselves and things that have happened to them. And we will all be in stitches laughing about it because they're able to laugh at themselves. And they've actually taught us to be a little bit better at it. Still not great. I fully admit I am not good at it.
Yeah.
But I still, like, I try to think of them when I'm doing some of those internal cringes over stuff that I've done, and I'm replaying it constantly, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to just let this go. I need to learn to, like you said, forgive myself, but also kind of like laugh at ourselves. Like,
I love
this
that.
is not, life is not really all that serious most of the time. So a lot of the things we tend to obsess over, we should be letting go of a lot easier and earlier. And I think that is definitely one of the things to learn from Gen Z.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, here, indeed.
Is
Well,
that
cheers.
our second mic drop?
Well, that's another cheers
All
for
right.
sure.
Clink.
Clink.
All right, so speaking. I'm just combining words right now. Speaking of our wine and drinking, Natalie, how's your summer in a bottle?
The more I drank it, the more it tasted like strawberry and,
Okay.
Ooh, I love
and a
that.
little mint. And
Oh.
it could be the same wishful thinking I had for the summer that I'm applying to the wine.
Yeah,
But it is increasing in delight.
it's funny how that happens.
And you wonder, are my taste buds really just starting to feel this, taste this, or is it just that the wine is doing its thing?
Yeah, well,
Or both.
Or both.
yeah, I choose both.
I choose both. I choose both.
Oh gosh, Natalie, it's
been a
been.
delight.
I know it's been
Thank
such
you
a
so
pleasure
much.
having you
So
on.
much fun.
I think your insights are really valuable, and I really hope that our listeners paid attention and that they really go into work, whatever day after they have listened to this podcast, and look at things a little bit differently and have some different conversations with not just Gen Z, but everybody.
I think that's exactly it. It's about giving grace to the generations, right? I think a lot of us who are, we can actually call ourselves the younger generation when we are talking about our boomers, etc. But like really giving them grace as well. Remembering that they grew up in a very different time than we did. They grew up in a time where things were a lot slower. They didn't have the instant gratification, the instant knowledge, and that does definitely create a different way of communicating. And so also giving them a little grace for their maybe the way they cling to some of our that's the way it was always done, and understand that is a comfort for them and help them maybe move forward from that.
Yeah.
And of course we have to do the same.
Yes.
Go Gen X. And I love my wine. That's all I'm gonna say. Everybody knows I love La Crema. I don't have to, I mean, how can you not?
Yeah. Well, and I, still enjoying mine immensely. So, although the bottle is still quite full, so
I'm really depressed.
You have to
by it.
fix that.
I know I have to fix that as soon as this episode is over, since I'm already mixing up my words. It's not because of the wine, people. It's just
Life is life right now.
Yeah.
You're lifing.
I'm lifing. Okay. Well, again, Natalie, thank you so very much. This was wonderful. You are always a guest on our show. You can come back anytime you want.
100%.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, with that, we are going to peace out, as Gen X would say.
Oh my God, we so would.
With a big fat cheers to all of our listeners.
Cheers.
Cheers.